Hello everyone, I'm Elizabeth Evans and I'm a lifelong member of TESOL Italy, long-time member I should say. And I'd like to welcome you all to this 48th TESOL Italy Annual Convention. Certificates of attendance will be available to download from the convention page of the TESOL Italy website after the convention. Our speaker for this session needs no introduction, but anyway, she is Hind Elias, and I'm sure many of you already know her. So Hind is an advanced English instructor in Saudi Arabia. She serves as the past chair of TESOL International PVPC and also serves as the Issues Coordinator at IATEFO Global Issues SIG and is an Elton Awards judge. Her interests include student engagement, 21st century learning, and differentiation. The title of Hind's session is Empowering Learners with Task-Based Learning Strategies. Hind, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm very happy to be here, and thank you to you and to TESOL Italy, and I hope you'll all enjoy my presentation. Okay, I'll start by sharing my screen. Okay, I think it's showing. Okay, is my screen showing? So the title of my talk is Empowering Learners with Task-Based Learning Strategies. So this is just a little about me. So imagine you're a superhero whose power is task-based learning. What would your name be, and what would your special ability be? So you can join this link by going to menti.com. And if you're joining from a phone, you can scan the QR code. So all you need to do is go to menti.com, and then they'll ask you for a code. You put in your code, and then you can put your responses in menti.com. So there are two things. What would your name be, and what would your special ability be? So I'm just going to open Menti, and we can just wait for 2 minutes and see, wait for your responses. I'll just open it here. All right, so you can just go to Menti and then use the code and type your responses. Super task teacher. Okay, I like that. Interesting. Yeah, we always have so many tasks and so many things that we need to do. So, yep, it would be great to be a super task teacher. Okay, we'll just wait for 1 minute, or yeah, almost 1 minute, and then we will move on to the next slide. And I'll come back to this one later. If we don't have enough responses now, we can come back to it later. During the presentation, you can put in your responses, and then we can come back and see the superpowers later on. Any other responses? Okay, so I think I'll keep this open, and then I'll close it for now, and then you can type in your responses, and I'll come back to it after I cover some points, and then I'll come back to this one later on. Okay, so what is task-based learning? So task-based learning is completing meaningful tasks, and it's using authentic language for genuine communication. It's very different from traditional teaching, where we focus on repetition and memorization. This is different. We focus on meaning and comprehension rather than repetition and recitation. So there are different phases of task-based learning. There are actually 3 phases. The first one is the pre-task, and it's not only task-based learning, but it happens in all types of learning. You set the task, you raise students' interest. It could be by an icebreaker or a picture, and you prepare your learners to perform the task. When you're preparing students to perform a task, we focus on content and language. So you might pre-teach vocabulary. You might explain to them what exactly you need to explain to them exactly what to do. Make sure they understand the new words, and you'll have to go over a few things for them to understand the task based on the level, of course. Then we have the actual task. And in this task, learners work in groups or pairs, and they use existing knowledge, their background knowledge, knowledge that they already have, and knowledge of language to express themselves in a spontaneous way. So the focus is communication. So the most important thing is getting your students to talk, and that means we don't keep correcting their mistakes at every single point. We monitor, provide support, and we can give them feedback at the end. So at the end of the task, students report the outcome to their peers or their partners or their group members, the ones who they've been working with. Then we have a post-task, and this is when students evaluate their performance. And this can be done by their peers, it can be done by their group members, and it can also, finally, the last activity is like, well, it's not activity, but evaluation is provided by the teacher. So feedback from their peers, and then they can have feedback from the larger group, and then feedback from their teachers. So I did this activity when I used to travel a lot. I used to go to conferences all the time. And students used to ask me, Miss Hind, where are you going this weekend? Where are you going? So I planned a road trip. And it's great because it helps them get to know me more and introduce them to something new. So, of course, at the beginning, we said we need to check their background knowledge, what words they know, are they familiar with the concept? So I would ask them, what is a road trip? Have you ever been on a road trip? Would you like to go on one? And where would you go? And students have a conversation and a discussion. So this is an example. I show them a map and ask them where they want to go. So they can decide where they want to go, but I chose certain places. So for now, I chose Venice, London, and India. So each group is given a copy of a map. It could be at different places. It depends on the level as well. It could be somewhere in Saudi Arabia. I'm based in Saudi Arabia, so it could be a new city or a city that's not very common in Saudi Arabia, or a place that they'd love to explore. And it's important to have local maps. So Venice, London, and a map of Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia. So I'm just going to summarize this. Their students will be asked to plan a road trip, and they send an email to a travel agency telling the agent about what they want. So as you can see, I'm not interested in going on an extravagant road trip. My budget is $1,800. I would like to visit 3 countries. It's 7 days long. I like food. I'm a solo traveler. I'm a light packer, and I don't want to share my room or bathroom or bedroom with anyone. So these are the points. This person wants to go. So Alex wants to go sightseeing, take pictures of famous landmarks, wants to visit a friend in Venice, and he also wants to have a car in good working condition. So now it's their job to make this work for Alex. So first of all, we focus on the content, we focus on the vocabulary and the language focus, just to make sure that they know exactly what they're doing, what and where to eat, what to do on holiday, types of holiday and type of traveler. So you can give them this, and then they put in their responses, just to make sure that they know what they're doing, and we know that they know the language, the vocabulary. So CCQs, are you going to plan a low budget trip? How many days? Does your client want to stay in a country? How much money does he want to spend? So all these questions, they need to know that these are important points. Then they're going to work in pairs or groups, and they're going to brainstorm, looking for this important information that I mentioned previously. And then it's time to plan. So the first stage, what I just did right now, is the planning stage. Then they're going to plan a road trip. So this is a planner, and they're going to plan a road trip based on the requirements. So you can give them information about the country. You can stick the information all around the room, and participants go around to find details about countries and cities, accommodation, food, and all the things that were in the email. And then they go back to their road trip planner, and of course, they're not allowed to go over the budget. So then they work in groups, and they try to come up with a good plan, and then they present their trips to their class members, and finally we all vote and see which one is the best one. So they after finishing this, they report to other groups. They state what countries, what food and accommodation they've chosen, and then they discuss which one is more appealing and why. It's a great activity, and if you have an advanced group, you can also give them an extension activity where you ask them to describe their trip. So now I'm going to talk about task-based learning and TESOL International's 6 principles for exemplary teaching of English learners. There's a great connection between task-based learning and the 6 principles. So let's look at the principles first. The first one is knowing your learners. The second one, principle 2, is creating conditions for language learning. The third one is designing high-quality lessons. The fourth one, adapting lesson delivery as needed. Fifth one is monitoring and assessing language development. And 6 is engaging and collaborating within communities of practice. So what is the connection between task-based learning and the 6 principles for exemplary teaching? So the link lies in their shared emphasis on learner-centered approaches, authentic teaching and learning, and communicative approaches. And we'll see that in different the next slides. So the first principle focuses on knowing your learners. What does that mean? It means understanding cultural, linguistic, and educational backgrounds of your learners. So first of all, if I give them something that's too advanced, they're not going to be able to complete their projects. If I give them something that's not related to their culture or they've never seen before, like if I have an activity with autumn and acorns and leaves on the floor, they don't see that in Saudi Arabia, so they will not be able to relate. So I need to know my learners, I need to know their level, I need to know their educational background to be able to set the right tasks. It also encourages teachers, task-based learning encourages teachers to consider the interests. So I not only need to know their cultural differences, but also need to know their levels. So that is how it follows the 6 principles. The second principle is creating conditions for learning. So we need to make sure that students work together to complete meaningful tasks. So putting them in the right groups, you can put them in mixed ability groups, you can put them in the same groups. Sometimes I give my students activities where there are activities for advanced learners and different activities for less confident learners when I'm differentiating. But there's also a time when you need to put them together and have a mixed ability group so they can support and help each other. By bringing real world tasks, they have the opportunity to use language for specific purposes and develop their communication skills. The third principle is designing high quality lessons. And that means encouraging integration of language skills into meaningful tasks. And that's not really easy, but through practice and making sure at the beginning, as we said, that they know the content, they understand their task, you go over the vocab, pre-teach vocabulary, that will help them, and that way you'll design high quality lessons. Again, the fourth principle is adapting lesson delivery as needed, and that is also connected to knowing your learners. So task-based learning provides flexibility for teachers to adapt them based on, as we said, their levels, their interests, their different learning styles. So adapting learning is very important. Finally, the last one, this is the fifth one, which is monitoring and assessing language development. So we do observe the students while they're role playing or talking about their road trips, but we're not going to interrupt them while they're speaking. So we can do that at the end. We don't have to keep correcting every single word, but we do that at the end, and we assess their language proficiency, we monitor their progress, and then we give them constructive feedback based on their performance. They can, as I said previously, they can get feedback from their colleagues and friends in their groups, and then get feedback from the teacher at the very end. The last principle is engaging and collaborating within a community of practice, and during their projects, they get to talk to people. So it's a real life context. If you're booking a flight, booking a hotel, going to a supermarket, buying something, it's an authentic real life situation. And that way we're facilitating connections between classroom learning and the outside world. So you're taking your students into the real world and bringing the real world into your classroom. So let's look at the features of task-based learning. Number one, we said real world relevance. So these tasks mirror real life situations, as you saw in the previous activity, which is planning a road trip, a travel agency. So things that can happen to a student outside the classroom, and this helps learners see the practical application of their language skills. I remember sometimes students ask, we learn all these things, but we don't really use them after graduating. We don't use them at all. So it's important to make sure that it's linked to real life scenarios, real life situations that can be used in the future and help them in the long run. Authentic. The task should be authentic and meaningful and allow them to engage with genuine language use or relevant skills in an authentic context. It's not just an artificial scenario, something that they will really experience. Communication. They have to communicate. They communicate with their peers. They communicate with community members. They communicate with their teachers in order to complete their tasks successfully. Student-centered learning. Tasks should take into account learners' interests, needs, and abilities. So this way we'll tap into their knowledge and experiences, and it will give them a sense of ownership and pride. And I mentioned this one previously, they work together with their colleagues, with their teachers, with their community members. There's interaction when they're working in pairs, when they're working in groups, and getting support from outside. So one of the activities that's a very interesting activity, and it's a great deal of fun, is the Passion Hour or the Genius Hour. And it focuses on finding their passion and building on it. So, and this is also linked to knowing your learners. If you know your learners, you know what they're passionate about, you'll be able to reach them, break the ice, and it will have an effect on their long-term learning. So it's called the Genius Hour, and it's where passions come to life. And it's a 21st century teaching tool method. And it refers to giving students a certain amount of time where they focus on things that they're really passionate about. It doesn't have to be connected to their learning or teaching or anything. They can talk about anything they want. Football, makeup, volleyball, cooking, anything at all. And we're going to explore their passions. So there are 6 principles of the Genius Hour. So the first thing, you start by asking them what they're passionate about. And during a certain period, you can give them a certain period of time to focus on what they're passionate about. And they're going to go through a whole research process without even knowing that they're learning. So let's start with the first principle, which is the 80-20 rule. So this is a pattern that can be used for learning in the classroom. 80% is for your class time, what you normally do in your class, and 20% can be for the Genius Hour. You can do it on a monthly basis or a weekly basis, depending on how much material you need to cover throughout the year. So what they need to do is they're going to go through a whole research process. And they're going to design their own learning. The second principle is socialization. At the end of the project, they're going to come up with something, and they decide what they want to talk about and how they want to present it to the group. So they need to socialize, connect with teachers to plan, peers to produce, and experts and community members to establish a sense of purpose. So they're going to go do surveys, ask questions, get feedback from friends, feedback from teachers, community members, parents. So there's the aspect of socialization. They're going to navigate unfiltered content. They gather information, narrow research, and make sense of things that are important to them. They design their own learning. Teachers are not going to tell them what they need to work on. They decide, and this gives them a sense of ownership and pride. Then they're going to come up with something. Whether they make, publish, design, act, do, creating is a core principle to the Genius Hour. This is also similar to task-based learning. There's a task, and they're going to come up with something at the end, so it's very effective. And of course, they have a sense of purpose because they are the ones who chose the topic. They decide on when they're going to present, how they're going to present it, and it's student-centered. So it's a great activity. It's fun. And one of the best things about it is that they don't even know that they're learning. Another interesting activity, which is the fishbowl, is also important, very useful, and it also is considered task-based learning. It's an activity for meaningful classroom discussions. So in the fishbowl activity, you have two groups. The inner group, which is the fishbowl, and the outer group, as you can see, the ones who are standing at the back. And these are participants. So first of all, you can select a topic or get them to choose what they want to. It depends on their level. You can give them a few minutes to prepare ideas and questions in advance and prepare for the discussion. You can do it at the beginning of the session, but also, as I said, depending on the level of the student, if you're working with a lower level group, it's better to give them a little more time to prepare for the discussion and get everything ready. So what they do, I'll just go back. You have the middle group, the ones in the middle are going to talk about a certain topic and they're going to have a discussion. The ones who are standing outside are just observing. You can prepare some notes with questions about the participants. Who are you going to observe? How many times did that person participate? Did they provide meaningful input? How many times did they participate? So you can give them prepare a set of questions, and then they just write the answers. So they focus on a specific student, and then they complete the forms. So you give them 10 to 15 minutes to discuss the topic, and then you can ask them to switch, or they tap their shoulders. It's called the tap system, where the ones when they tap the ones outside tap the fishbowl participants' shoulders, they swap and switch places. So the fishbowl participants go out and become observers, and the observers go in and become fishbowl participants, and they start another conversation. So after the discussion, you ask them to reflect on how it went and what they learned, and they can evaluate their performance as listeners and participants, how they felt when they were in the fishbowl, how they felt when they were outside, which one they preferred, and that can also help help you know more about your students. So, how is the fishbowl activity connected or linked to task-based learning? It involves real-world relevance and communication. They're interacting with each other, they're solving problems, and they're collaborating. So it's effective, it's fun, and it's different from something new, different from the traditional teaching method. It also provides learners with authentic context to practice communication skills, like they give opinions, give feedback, they negotiate. It also encourages active engagement, active listening, critical thinking. They work together to solve a specific problem, and it's fun. So I'm gonna go back to our document and our Mentimeter. I'm just gonna make sure. So let's see the responses. So we still need a little more responses on the Mentimeter. We have Wonder Teacher, we have Super Toss Teacher. So if you can add more ideas and share your responses here, that would be great. So now there's another activity here. Give examples of task-based learning activities that you use in your classroom. So I'm gonna share this Jamboard link in the, I'm gonna share it in the chat. And then I would like you to also answer put your responses, like, have you used any activities that are linked to task-based learning in your classrooms? I'll just share the link. There's Jamboard. Oh yeah, here it is. So this is a link for Jamboard, and this is a different activity. Copy the link, and I'm just going to share it in the group, in the chat box. So this is also a Jamboard link where you can all you need to do is just tap on the 3 buttons on the top of the page, and then you create a small post-it, and you write your answers there. Examples of different task-based activities. If it doesn't work, because sometimes it requires a Gmail account, you can just put your responses in the chat box. Thank you. So I'll come back to this activity and the other one in a minute. Elizabeth, you I saw you posted a message saying 5 minutes. Do you have 5 minutes left?
Yes.
Okay, all right, great. So okay, so we can just go back to the links that we have, and if you can please put your responses here and think about your superpowers. And that is the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Hind, could you please share the link again for the Mentimeter?
Sure.
If someone's asking for it. They obviously didn't catch it.
Oh,
So
sure.
yeah.
Great. Okay, I'll just
Thank
send it.
you.
Yeah, I'll just copy and paste. So we always use so many different activities, and without even knowing, they're task-based activities. So many of these activities are task-based activities where they come up with a project, and they're fun. Task-based activities are really are fun.
Okay, Stefania, there is the link again.
So in the chat box, if you can just type an activity and that you've used or that you think might be a task-based learning activity. It doesn't necessarily sometimes people think that it has to be a really long project, but just things like a fishbowl activity or the Genius Hour, very, they don't really take that long, but they're also considered task-based activities. Jasmina, can you see the link?
I was going to say that I've tried out creating posters and lap books in the class with students regarding a particular topic. So that would be regarded as task-based learning too, wouldn't it?
Exactly. I have something similar, which is the All About Me bag, where they put things in the bag or they stick pictures on a bag. So that's also, yeah, exactly.
Yes, it's very nice, that activity. Yeah.
I do it at the beginning of the term. Yeah, it's fun.
So someone's saying, I did something similar. The students had to research the cities of Europe and find interesting places to visit. They came up with many lovely ideas. Yes, that's great.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That just reminds me of this trip, the one that I just presented, the road trip. So it was really interesting because they were discussing different options, and some of them didn't want to focus on the examples that I gave them, but they just started to expand and explore. And it was interesting. At the end, they made some videos, this extension activity for the advanced ones, or for people who were really interested in it. They made videos of different places with prices and everything. So yeah, just knowing our students and knowing what they're interested in can really make a difference.
Yeah, super. So I don't know if we've any questions in the Q&A box. I'll have a look just in case. No, no questions there. So just someone saying thank you, and Jasmina's comment, and another comment from Maria Angela. I did something similar with festivals around the world, asking them to share posts on a Padlet board about what they did and why they liked it. That's lovely.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's interesting. And I did something similar during our national day here. I asked them to put pictures of, well, they made posters about different regions in Saudi Arabia. And they all got to dress up and bring local food. And it's very interesting how different regions can be very different, have completely different costumes, completely different cultures. So it does help you know your students more, and they were really, excited about it. And it was something different. That's what they all like.
And Antonella says, I had students work in groups at the end. They presented orally the plan to conservation of an old building in town, report on any other topics. Very nice.
Oh, that's very interesting. That's really interesting, Antonella. Thank you.
One that I personally did in class was on the Native Americans, and they were put into groups. Each group was a different tribe. They had to research the tribe, and then they had to create like PowerPoints about those tribes. And also they manually created objects with paper, whatever that the tribes used. And like, for example, a dream catcher, they made that with feathers and wood. It was lovely.
Oh, that's very interesting.
And they learned a lot about the Native Americans.
That's very interesting. Yeah, that's the best way for them to learn, by researching and, actually doing something and coming up with a role play or dressing up. They'll never forget that.
And what about your mentee? Are there any other
I checked Menti. I don't see any responses. Only the
No.
2 that we had. I'll just
Mhm.
check Jamboard. No, I'll just go back to Menti. So as you can see the Menti on the screen, you can just go to menti.com, mentimeter.com, and then this is the code. I'll type it in the chat box, and then you'll be able to. Okay, I'm just gonna type the link in the website in the chat.
Okay.
So it's menti.com. Menti.com. If you go to menti.com, sorry, menti.com, and then
Okay, we have a couple now, a couple extra. Super learner, super task teacher, wonder
Oh, great.
teacher, power to expand time.
Oh, interesting. Power to expand time. Exactly.
Yeah, that
We
would be
always,
cool.
yeah, that would be great.
Yes,
Especially
definitely would be.
right before exams, we need, excuse me, we need as much time as possible. We're always looking for an extra session, trying to get extra classes to review with our students. So that would be amazing. Not only for students, but for us as educators as well.
Yes, above all.
Yeah, absolutely. Super learner. Yep. That applies to us as well.
Mhm.
And yeah, if you just have a chip with all the information and just that would be a great superpower.
Yeah.
Thank you for the responses.
Well, okay, so what can we say? Thank you, Hind, for your lovely presentation.
Thank you so
Great
much.
ideas. Jasmina's saying thank you very much for the great ideas.
you.
And I
Thank
agree
you
with
so
her.
much.
So lovely seeing you again. And on behalf of TESOL Italy, we thank you.
Thank you
And,
so much.
and just to remind you all again about the certificates of attendance that will be available to download from the TESOL website. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much once again.
Thank you
I
for coming
appreciate it.
through.